Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Did you know 39% of teen drivers admit to texting while driving? Even scarier, those who text are more likely to speed and run red lights. Shockingly, 94% know it's dangerous but do it anyway. As a parent, you can't always be in the car, but you can stay connected to their safety with Greenlight Infinity's driving reports. Monitor their driving habits, see if they're using their phone, speeding, and more. These reports provide real data for meaningful conversations about safety. Plus, with weekly updates, you can track their progress over time. Help keep your teens safe. Sign up for Greenlight Infinity at greenlight.com/podcast.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And we have a big episode for you tonight as we unveil our top 50 updates for the middle of the 2025 season. And as you have seen, there's been a lot of movement in Birdland in the last few weeks between the trade deadline and the draft. So this list has been heavily overhauled, not just from our update earlier this year, but even from our Patreon update back in the beginning of July. And we're going to break all of that down tonight from prospect number 1 all the way down to prospect number 50. But first, as we like to do at the top of every episode, we want to welcome some new members to our Patreon community. And for that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Yeah, first I'd like to thank some Guy Malazzi, for signing up for a year at the AA level. And also we have another guy who's coming in at single A, much like some of the trade acquisitions, Vince. So thank you guys so much for signing up. I hope you enjoy the product. And yeah.
There's never a bad time of the year to sign up to become a patron. You can join the $3, $5, or $10 levels and have access to bonus weekly shows, as well as monthly updates to the lists that we're going to break down on tonight's show. But I think it was particularly good timing to get your shout out in on this episode, because we have a lot that we're going to break down. As we do with all of our lists, we each submitted individual rankings of 1 through 50. Bob then took those lists, broke them down to an aggregate using a point system, and that produces the finalized top 50. At the end of the show, we'll each reveal a prospect that didn't make the cut that was on our personal list, as well as a prospect that we really wanted to find room for but couldn't. But we're going to start with the countdown at 1 through 10. Number 1, it's to come as no surprise at all, is Samuel Basallo, one of the top prospects in all of baseball, putting up a monster season at AAA Norfolk at the young age of 20. He's followed by his teammate with the Tides, Dylan Beavers, who's currently knocking on the door of the major leagues. And then this is where the list really starts to shake up a little bit. Ike Iris, the Orioles' first pick in the 2025 draft, follows at number 3. Trey Gibson now is number 4, the top-ranked pitcher in the Orioles farm system, according to our list. Wahil Aloy, one of the earliest picks in this year's draft class, comes in at 5th. He's followed by Michael Ferret at 6th, Enrique Bradfield Jr. 7th, Nestor Herman 8th, Boston Bateman, one of the prospects acquired from the Padres as part of the Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Laureano deal, ranks 9th, and he's followed by Nate George at number 10. So there's an interesting range of prospects in this list, but I do want to start with Basallo, really the undisputed number 1. All 3 of us had him first on our individual list, and it should come as no surprise. Basallo has belted 21 homers in just 69 games this season, surpassing not only his total in 127 games from last year, but his previous career high of 20, which he achieved back in the 2023 season. It feels like we're getting closer and closer to seeing Basallo in the major leagues. And Nick, I will start with you here. Just how good is Basallo?
Well, he's still just 20 years old. Like you said, he's already eclipsed his career high in home runs for a single season at the AAA. Well, at any level, but he's doing so as a 20-year-old at the AAA level in more than 200 fewer plate appearances, really torpedoing those balls out of the ballpark. Yeah, we got a 152 WRC plus. We've got a 14% walk rate. We've got a max EV of 116 miles an hour, which is 98th percentile. 100th percentile in barrel rate, 58% hard hit rate, which is 98th percentile. He mashes the baseball. Like, we can sit here and nitpick some things, I'm sure, but he's still going to be a force in the major leagues. And the scary thing is, what should be scary for the rest of the league, and this isn't orange glasses. This isn't like homerism shining through. This is legitimately, there's still a wide way to go, a long way to go for him to develop, I think, his entire game, which I think should be scary for the rest of the league. But yeah, of course, we know it's going to be at the earliest. We know the earliest deadline he'll come up. Hopefully he does come up at that point to retain rookie eligibility. Probably won't see him behind the plate too much if he does come up this year, but still get him comfortable. And next year, some full run at the major league level.
Yeah, I think we're about 2 weeks away from the exciting day, seeing Samuel Basallo suit up for the Baltimore Orioles. That announcement tweet, or the clip of the manager giving him the news, that's going to hit pretty good in about 2 weeks here. But yeah, I mean, he went 0 for 9, like a 9 at bat hitless streak earlier this week, and it was like he was in a month-long slump. The way his body language, like he is just not satisfied with getting out. And yeah, I think that, I don't know if it's always a good thing to be that upset over small failures, but I think that is a huge reason why he continues to grow so much during a season. Just the growth mindset, the drive to be the best. It's all there to go with the tools. There's just not, I feel like we've run out of things to say about him, just because to me, he's the best prospect in baseball after Roman Anthony has graduated, I believe. So yeah, pretty clear number one here, and very excited for the debut. Same with number 2, though.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue to go into the rest of this top 10. Beavers, as I mentioned in the intro, really is knocking on the door of the major leagues, should be here sooner rather than later. I don't know how you guys felt when you were putting together your top 10s, but first of all, it was probably one of the more challenging top 10s that I've had to put together in a while, and in a good way, because there's a lot of good prospects in this system now. But you could probably go with Beavers over Iris on the justification that they're probably similar skill sets, even if Iris has a higher ceiling. Beavers is doing a AAA right now. Iris is just entering pro ball, and we don't even know where he's going to end up defensively yet. But I feel like when you go from 3 to at least 6 or 7, perhaps even further down, depending on your individual valuations, you could put these players in just about any order and have a good reason for it.
So true. Yeah, I think honestly, 3, well, I feel like my top 3 are pretty firm, at least personally, but I'll say 4 to 15 is just like throw them in a blender. They could come out any which way. I love not just the depth, which I feel like was there before the trade deadline and the draft, because just a lot of guys with breakout potential, but especially after adding 30, 40 players between the draft at the high end of the system, in the middle of the system, at the bottom of the system. It's maybe deeper than the days when the farm system was elite. We just don't have the guys at the very top right now outside of Basallo and Beavers, and I think a third one in Gibson. But yeah, it's just incredibly deep right now, and that's good for trades. That's good for development. And yeah, it was incredibly hard to put this together. Not even just the top 10 for me, but just I left some guys off the top 50 that I was like sure would be on there before I went in to really fine tune the list. So a lot of fun, but also difficult decisions at the same time.
Yeah, remember when Dylan Beavers was hitting 208 with a 37% strikeout rate and a WRC plus in the 60s at one point this year? Yeah, that was interesting times, because now he's rocking a 16% walk rate with a 17% strikeout rate and a 154 WRC plus. You look at his StatCast page. I shared it the other day. It looks even better after this weekend. Since then, I think it was Baseball America had the article out that his 90th percentile EV is up 2 miles per hour to 105. So like it's more power in the tank. I'm ready for the whole process to begin. Right, the Beavers comes up, he struggles. Twitter tells me he sucks. This org can't develop hitters, and he doesn't play. The Orioles say the line about learning on the bench. Beavers has dinner with Kobe Mayo. Kobe Mayo passes along whatever Kyle Stowers told him, and then 2026 Beavers shows out. Like, it's time to get this process rolling because we all know that's exactly how this process is going to roll out. But fantastic year for Beavers when a lot of people were ready to write him off and didn't think he would ever reach this potential. I certainly did not think he would reach this potential and we would see this version of Dylan Beavers, but I'm glad we are. Yeah, I had an Irish 3 and a Loy 4 on my personal list. Very excited to see these guys. Hopefully they get a little bit of run over the final 2 weeks of the season here. But yeah, the interesting things were for me were the pitchers. This was the hardest spot for me. Like, Trey Gibson's just toying with hitters. His last 5 starts in Double-A, 27 innings, an ERA of 1.00, 33% strikeout rate, and a 7% walk rate. He's gone 7 innings twice, and in both of those 7-inning outings, no walks and no runs in those performances. And then Nestor Herman, I think he's really starting to settle in to Double-A. We've got him 8th overall. I had him 7th on my list. You look at the last 6 starts. I don't know if you guys read the RoboScout stuff on Baseball America. Those are always fun articles. I like looking at those. But I think where is this line? I want to quote them. They had a good line about Nestor Herman. It says, so his last 6 outings, where'd it go? Here we go. Sorry, this is terrible. But quote, you can usually tell, nope, that's not the quote. Basically, his last 6 starts, he's got a 33% strike rate. The walk rate is down. And RoboScout agreed. They're like, hey, this guy has got mid-rotation ceiling. If you look at his last 6 or so starts in Double-A, he's, quote, starting to kiss that ceiling again after a bit of a rocky earlier start in the year. But that stuff is starting to shine through for Nestor Herman. And Ferret, do we have Ferret? Yeah, we've got Ferret 6. I am number 6 on my top 10 as well. Something's up there with Ferret, I think, because they are really limiting his innings. Only 4 innings the other night. The numbers are fantastic. It's a 1.65 ERA with a 7% walk rate and a 33% strikeout rate in 54 innings. But ever since the back injury, they really haven't unleashed him. And I almost wonder if it's just because maybe there's concern there and you don't want to, if the back's bothering you a little bit, maybe you don't want to overcompensate and have something else start to break down. I don't know, but we'll see if he gets promoted to Double-A sometime soon. But yeah, Nate George was an interesting one here. I didn't have him in my top 10. I had him 12th. Nate George and Esteban Mejia I have similar arguments for as to why they're a little bit lower on my list. But I mean, is there a more exciting prospect in the system right now outside of Samuel Basayo and Dylan Beavers than Nate George in his rise? He hasn't slowed down since we last talked about him. So this top 10 is extremely exciting. And a lot of people thinking, I saw some instant takes after the trade that they think Boston Bateman could be the top pitching prospect in this organization next year. So you're throwing another top pitching prospect into this mix as well. Fun top 10.
Incredibly fun top 10. Yeah, Dylan Beavers, again, we talked about last week how we would just bring him right up. I know I would. But watch, the Orioles will keep him down past that August 15th deadline, manages at bats until 2026. He'll get on some top 100 list, and he'll end up beating Basayo for Rookie of the Year, and we'll get another draft pick. But, yeah, can't wait to see him. Obviously, something clicked very early in the season, and it's not like, oh, something clicked, and now he's this set player. No, since that point, he's just gotten better and better. The strikeouts going down, the walks going up, the power going up. So just – yeah, can't wait to see Orioles fans to call him trash in about 3 weeks. Ike Irish and Wahiwa Aloy. I had Aloy ahead of Irish. I had so much difficulty deciding which one to put where, just because I gave Aloy the advantage basically just because defense think he can be a shortstop with power, whereas Ike Irish is more corner outfield. And again, just splitting hairs there. But Trey Gibson, yeah, I think he is the best pitching prospect we've had since Grayson Rodriguez, as Vivek says. Hopefully his arm stays a little bit healthier than Grayson's has, but just getting better and more comfortable each time out. Cannot wait for him to get up to AAA. We get some data on him. That'd be awesome. Michael Ferret. Yeah, it is interesting that they have severely I think this was the first time he came close to 80 pitches in a while, at least this last time out. Get him up to Double A, even if you're going to continue to do this. Maybe it's just the way they want to manage his innings so that he can hit whatever count they have set for him, and he can pitch all year while doing so. I don't know, but he should be in Double A. Bodine, again, I wonder if the guys like Irish, Alloy, and Bodine could skip Delmarva and go straight to Aberdeen whenever they get activated, just because I feel like a lot of guys at Delmarva are just getting there, while these guys are polished college hitters. Maybe there's more room for them in a lineup in Aberdeen, but Bradfield's been hurt all year for the most part, off and on, but when he's on the field, he's been good. Nestor Erman, yeah, I think the whiffs are just stacking up for him. So I think his numbers, he's been even better than his numbers have shown so far. Nate George, yeah, I want to put him higher, but at the same time, there's just more guys that are more polished ahead of him. It's only a matter of time, I feel like, before he leapfrogs some of these guys and continues to climb up the list. And I just didn't know what to do with Boston Bateman just yet. I'm someone that I need to see them in the Orioles system before I can really start to make firm judgments. So I have him a little bit lower, but certainly room for him to climb up my list personally.
Yeah. Before we go down the next part of the list, I want to throw this question out there because it's one I've had about Ike Iris really since the Orioles drafted him. We know with his time as a catcher in college that there's value in having that skill set. And even if the Orioles don't think that long-term he's going to end up behind the plate or they have doubts about it, it's not bad to have him catch at least early on in his career and keep him involved in that. At the same time, though, I'm torn between that thought and just deciding to make him a right fielder from day one, cut him loose, and let the hit tool just flourish out there. Because I think that if the Orioles chose that path, he could get to the big leagues pretty quickly. But I know that if he catches, that could make him a more valuable player in the long run, but it is going to slow down his trajectory towards the majors. So what do you guys think of that?
I think, and I also want to talk about Bradfield for a second too after this, if you guys don't mind. I do think, because I think Caden Bodine, I don't think this is a hot take at all. I think Caden Bodine could be Double A's starting catcher on opening day next year, in all honesty. And Irish, I don't want to. I wish they would have announced at the draft. I wish they would have announced him as an outfielder. I also see the value in this. I get it, but I'm also completely fine if he doesn't catch a single inning in pro ball, and you just stick him in right field, let that cannon play in the outfield, and let the bat shine. Because I mean, you listen to a lot of college baseball podcasts after the draft, and I think there's pretty much almost unanimous agreement that Ike Irish was the best hitter in the SEC last year. And you let that bat shine and you stick him in the outfield. He's very good. Like I said, the first time I sat down and watched Irish this year in that series, it was his first series back after the injury, and they had him in right field. I would have never guessed that he had missed some time and hadn't played much outfield at all this year before I watched him out there. He was fantastic out there in right field. So stick him in right field, let the bat play. You got Adley, you got Basayo, and you got Caden Bodine, who's right behind them. He should not be in the minor leagues for very long. There's a future corner outfielder right there in Ike Irish.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, why slow down his development / progression at all? Just have him play first base, corner outfield, DH, let the bat fly, and yeah, get these guys up the system. Yeah, I think all of our top 3 picks are super polished, and yeah, should certainly see Double A faster than last year's crop of draft prospects have so far. Shout out to Austin O'Verne, just got promoted there, maybe the first guy. But yeah, let's talk about Enrique Bradfield Jr.
Yeah, just wanted to bring him up so we highlight him because he did drop some spots. How much did he drop on our list? It's not. Is it on there? 4. Yeah. Look, I think that drop is not really an indictment on what we saw when he's healthy. It's the hamstring issues have been, 3 of them he's had this year. He just hasn't really been on the field this year, but like the organization clearly has been pushing him out there a lot. And when you hear him talk, you understand why. I could listen to, I wish he had his own podcast. I'd listen to this man talk about anything for 6 hours at a time. but only 36 games in Double-A this year. And you look at the numbers, they actually have been pretty solid. I didn't honestly realize until this morning when I started really looking at him a little bit in preparation for this, that when he is on the field, he was pretty good. 24 walks, 21 strikeouts, a 123 WRC plus, ISOs ticked up, contact rate, his minuscule swinging strike rate, all there, fewer ground balls, more fly balls. So when he was on the field, things were going well, but it's just been 36 games. And I just think, like, if don't sour on him, if the dark thoughts are starting to creep in because of the injuries, I think he should be, hopefully he can end the year strong. And I think he could potentially be a candidate for the Arizona Fall League. Hopefully some more at-bats there, and potentially I think he'd still be possibly on track to start next year in AAA, even with all the missed time, potentially. But if a lot goes right this offseason. But yeah, his drop isn't so much due to, like, I think we're souring on him, unless you guys have a different opinion there. But this is a very strong draft class. And so I think that just kind of pushed him down a little bit more than.
Yeah. Other than, try to play through a hamstring injury that keeps getting re-aggravated. Yeah, he's done nothing wrong, really. He was 3 last time for us. So Aloy, Irish, new draft picks, Gibson, skyrocketing arm. I think Ferret, similar category. And Bodine on my personal draft top 50 list is ahead of him as well. But yeah, he's done nothing wrong. It's just we've added a bunch of talent. And, he's somewhat limited in his upside with the power not quite being there. So yeah, these guys jumped in, but I'm still super excited for him. Maybe his timeline gets shifted from opening day 2026 coming into the year. We thought he might be ready for the majors. Maybe that's a year behind or even half a year behind, depending on if he comes back, how he finishes, and how he starts next year in AAA. So yeah, still a fan for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. My moving him down my personal list was not, again, as Nick said, an indictment on his talent. It's just you add this influx of prospects into the system to the point where we just unfortunately have not seen as much of Bradfield this year we would have liked because of injuries. I'm glad, Nick, that you pointed out the offensive numbers because they are a lot better than they would appear on the surface, and I hope that that's a takeaway that people have. And whatever time he's able to get in 2025 in the regular season should help. But I agree that he should be in Arizona if he's healthy by the time the fall league starts.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Sign up for Greenlight today at greenlight.com/podcast.
Valspar Ultra starts at just $29.98 a gallon. So we've got you covered when your daughter wants to paint her room again after last year's masterpiece of a unicorn mural.
Dad, please.
Or when you realize that maybe you went too hard on the grayish.
I miss color.
Or when you were sure you wanted a home gym, but your elliptical is currently hanging your laundry.
What about a home office?
Shop everything you need for your next phase with Valspar. Available at Lowe's. Price varies by Shein.
And we'll go down now to the teens, the 11 through 20 range. And I think this is where it gets really interesting because you start to see some of the differences in our personal list come through. At number 11, we have Caden Bodine. He's followed by fellow 2025 draftee Slater DeBrun, who ranks 12th. DeBrun, as you might remember, the Orioles went nearly $1.5 million over slot to sign him in the most recent draft. Then you have Esteban Mejia, who is skyrocketing up national lists, and he's moved up our list quite a bit. He is at 13th, followed by Brandon Young, probably appearing on his final top 50 prospects list. He was just under the wire in terms of innings pitched to be eligible for this list, but hopefully we'll get some time in the major leagues to show the Orioles what he has, and his rookie eligibility should run out within the next few starts. Judd Fabian goes down to 15th. I think we'll talk about Fabian a little bit more here, but I think kind of like what Nick just touched on at Bradfield, this is not an indictment of Fabian's performance in Norfolk this year, but more so a reflection of how the system has changed in the last few weeks. He's then followed by Levi Wells, 16th, Aaron Estrada, 17th. Braxton Bragg at 18, and I know for myself, and I can imagine that for the two of you as well, Bragg would have ranked much higher on your personal list than he did if it wasn't for the fact that he just underwent Tommy John surgery, and we won't see him pitch again until late in the 2026 season, possibly not until 2027, but he was having an incredible season before that injury. Deron Watts-Brown, acquired from the Blue Jays in the Sir Anthony Dominguez trade, is at 19, and then he is followed by Cameron Weston, who has been a really steady contributor to the Tides rotation and knocking on the door of the 40-man roster now at 20. So an interesting group here, but I want to start with what I see as kind of the higher ceiling guys in DeBrun and Mejia, because these are both young players. Mejia recently ranked on Baseball America's top 100 prospects list. He made his debut at Delmarva over the weekend. And then DeBrun, as I just mentioned, the Orioles went considerably over slot to sign him away from a commitment to Vanderbilt in this year's draft. And if you want to look at the young outfield prospects, there is an interesting debate to be had right now between DeBrun and Nate George. For myself, I have Nate George higher on my personal list because, number one, I don't think anybody saw the season that George has had coming. And while the hit tool, specifically the swing and miss, not so much the hit tool, but the swing and miss tendencies are a little bit of a concern for me with George right now. He's also a 19-year-old in low A, probably doing a lot better than most players his age at that level. So that's kind of why I had him ahead of DeBrun. But there's an argument you could flip those two. And then with Mejia, if you went on pure ceiling, I think he would be higher than some of the pitchers in the top 10 list. But he's also just 18, just now getting the low A. So a long way to go in his development. So what kind of curious to hear from you guys what your thoughts are on Mejia and DeBrun.
I think the Nate George and DeBrun thing for me was just, I don't want to get over our skis on the young guys, as exciting as they are. I'd rather be more conservative from the jump here. And I'm very high on a lot of the college guys who joined the system, and these pitchers, I think, deserve a lot of respect for the development that they've shown. So that's why I kept them higher. And I had DeBrun 11 and Nate George 12 on my list. DeBrun one slot higher just because he was the 37th overall pick. He got $4 million and he was committed to Vanderbilt. And so Nate George is a fascinating story. He's a 16th round pick, but there's still a lot of rawness in his game. And I know DeBrun hasn't even played a game of professional baseball, but regardless, these two are still like fascinating outfield prospects who are going to be a lot of fun to watch next season. George probably is going to start next year as a 19-year-old or so in high A, and could be the star down there at Aberdeen, Frederick, wherever we're playing high A baseball next year. But yeah, that's the only difference for me. With Mejia, the hype is just, it's been insane. And I think it's been too much, to be honest. Like, the stuff can be super flashy. It is. He's up to 102. He's got multiple plus pitches. He's got a tall starter's build that, especially when he fills out and continues to develop physically, like, he could end up being a workhorse arm. He could end up being one of the top, if not the top prospect in the system within the next year, for all we know. But he's still an 18-year-old kid with control issues that we just saw for the first time on Sunday. I didn't watch the outing yet. I was watching Watts-Brown in his Bowie debut. And so haven't watched the Mejia outing quite yet. I don't know if you guys caught it or not, but it's exciting. This is like Michael Jordan. I prayed for times like this meme. National media talking about an Orioles international pitching prospect. I love it. I just think it's been too much. They're really latching on to this, which is great. It speaks to how electric this kid can be, but I have him on my list at 14, and we'll see what he does. Now that he's in full season ball, he's going to get a handful of starts before the end of the season. I'm sure hopefully the control looks good and he starts to get more swing and miss, but I couldn't push him up much higher. I know other outlets have him like number 2, number 3. There's no way I could do that at this point right now.
Yeah, I agree with that, just because look at the names in front of him. Look, he'll probably get there, but I was laser focused on his start on Sunday. Delivery looks great. Frame looks great. He's not like wild like Keeler Morphe. Let's just say that. Like he's around the zone. He's not like missing with these guys just standing there with the bat on their shoulders. But yeah, slider that touched 94 this Sunday. I don't think he had his A fastball, probably because he got warmed up, didn't pitch, like a few days before. So he was 97 to 100. I think he's typically sits faster than that, but I'm fine with it. Obviously, you don't need to try to impress people with the radar gun if
they learn from the Keeler Morphe. They learn
right.
Let's calm it down.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the changeup looked good when he flashed that. I'm sure it's just about refinement with him, and he's so young. Like, it's insane. So much to grow. Probably next year he's going to be filled out even more. Just continue to refine the pitches, tunnel them better, what have you. But very excited for his future. But yeah, I couldn't put him ahead of even Boston Bateman, who's 19 and seemingly pretty polished for a big guy himself. As far as Slater, DeBrun, and Nate George, I had DeBrun 9, George 11. George, I mean, you can already see the improvements. Like, he's walking more, he's striking out less. But he doesn't. To really like push him into like borderline top 5, top 8 type territory, I want to see a little bit more of the power to his game. I'm sure it's coming. He's still just turned 19. And Slater DeBrun, like you said, 37th round pick, got $4 million. Corbin Carroll comps. So that's why I just slotted him a little bit above George. But man, those three guys are going to be exciting to follow over the next 2 or 3 years on their journey to the bigs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything you guys said about Mejia is accurate. I did watch his start on Sunday, and there were a couple of weird circumstances. As Bob mentioned, he was actually supposed to have pitched earlier in the series. I believe it was on Friday night. He was penciled in to start, but then didn't because he had warmed up before a storm started. So he ended up not pitching in that game. His start gets bumped to Sunday. That's one weird thing working against him. And then the other is that the first batter he faced, the first pitch was a pitch clock violation. So he starts off down 1-0 before technically he's even thrown a pitch. And you could tell that frazzled him a little bit. And it took him, honestly, 2 pitches into the next at bat where it seemed like, okay, he kind of has everything under control now. He's starting to locate his pitches a little bit better. My sense, though, in watching the outing is that he was not going max effort with the fastball velocity, but yet he was still doing an excellent job of changing speeds with it, able to run between 97 and 100, 101. It's just a matter of taking these pitches that he has, the fastball, the changeup, and the slider, and just throwing them for strikes more consistently. If he does that and he can stay healthy, the makings of a really electric arm are there, but he's still raw. He's probably going to start next season at Delmarva. And if all goes well, end the year in high A as a 19-year-old, which would not be a small accomplishment in the slightest sense. But just to put his timeline into perspective, this is not someone who's going to be contributing at a high level anytime soon, whereas guys like Gibson, Herman are showing pretty high ceilings, doing it at AA. And as you just mentioned, Bob, Boston's only a year older than Mejia. He's been at low A all year and looks at this point more polished than Mejia is what I would say.
Yeah, exactly. Completely agreed.
For me, this group of prospects moving on to the other players is really interesting because you have some guys that have just been really steady this year. Judd Fabian has, I don't think he's ever gotten too high or too low this year. Aaron Estrada, in a repeat of last year, was hit over power for 2 months. And then all of a sudden the power starts to show up and he's now at AA. Levi Wells, we talked a lot about his improvements early in the season. He's continuing to show them day in and day, or start in and start out. And as I've said before, and I still believe, the best thing I can say for Levi Wells' season is that coming into this year, I thought he would have a good season, but we would settle in on him as a reliever. But now he's having a good season. I actually could see him starting in the big leagues if all goes well. And then with Watts, Brown, and Weston, 2 guys on different ends of the spectrum when it comes to stuff, but both having success at high levels in the minors as starters. And in the case of Weston, a guy that I would not rule out that we see in the majors before this season ends. And it looks like I'm the high person on Weston out of the 3 of us, but he is Rule 5 eligible before this year ends. putting up solid numbers in Norfolk. And we know that the Orioles are going to need pitching depth to get through this year. So even if it's as a long reliever or a spot starter, I wouldn't be shocked if Weston's in Baltimore before the season's out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he'll probably get a shot, especially, I mean, this bullpen is a little run ragged and a lot of guys with options now. So you can kind of bring guys up, push guys back down. Like Houston Roth was in the Major League bullpen for about a week, never got in a game, but was optioned today. I'm sure he'll be back up at some point. But yeah, I mean, I think Aaron Estrada, I'm higher on him. I think the bat, like, look what he did at Aberdeen compared to everybody else. And now he's up in AA and just murdered the ball in his first week at AA competition. I think he is maybe because he doesn't really have a defensive position so much. I guess second base if you had to put him somewhere. But I think the bat could end up being pretty good there as he continues to move up. He's only 20 years old still, hits the ball 112 miles per hour. So I'm higher on him. But yet Judd Fabian, I have him at 17. But I don't think any differently than I did a month ago. Like, he's having a good season outside of missing some time. Still a great fielder with a great arm, a lot of pop. Strikeouts have come down compared to where he was at AAA last year. So it's just, again, a testament to how deep and how strong this farm system has grown in such a short amount of time. So, yeah, and Levi Wells, he's kind of on the Michael Ferret treatment where he's pitching fewer pitches, fewer innings, but the walks are down. Like he looks good to me. I have no complaints whatsoever. And Braxton Bragg, man, I had just in my head before he got the Tommy John said, if anyone gets Tommy John, I'm just knocking him out of my top 50 completely just because for, just to have some kind of firm rule in it. And then he gets the surgery and I'm like, I can't commit to that just yet, even though I'm sure he'll slowly fade out kind of over time the way Pat Riley seems to be doing. But yeah, what do you think, Zach? Nick?
Yeah, it's hard to know what to do with the Tommy John guys, especially guys like Riley and Bragg who are a little bit older as well. But we'll see what happens with them. I think Judd is Judd. We know who he is. Like he's a little bit of a quieter second half, I think. But you had the wrist injury in there. New dad, so he's probably sore. He's probably tired. We'll give it to him.
Get that.
Everything is consistent with Fabian. Like we know who he is, and I always really enjoyed that. No one's ever been like there are some massive Judd Fabian fans, but everyone has always been very realistic when it comes to Judd Fabian's ceiling and what his role could be at the major league level, which is very good to see. We're all in agreement on Judd Fabian there. Yeah, it's Estrada, man. He's been so consistent, and every time he gets promoted, he adjusts so well and so quickly. Like strikeout rate, swing and miss rate, contact rate, all of it remains consistent from level to level. Like you mentioned, he was very good in Aberdeen this year, OPS over 800 as a 20-year-old. It's only been 6 games at the AA level, but he's already got a couple of home runs. One of them, maybe you give the assist to the outfielder, but still. The swing, he's kind of like he's running. It's only 6 games, but he's running like a 6% swinging strike rate. Like AA pitchers haven't been able to beat him yet. Of course, they're going to adjust. He's going to settle in here, but man, even if the ceiling, which is potentially a big league utility guy who plays okay defense at a few spots. I remember earlier in the year they tried to run him out there in left field. It was not pretty at all. But so I think he can play at least okay defense at a couple of different spots. And if that's his ceiling, like that's a huge win. He's like 5'8", signed for less than $200,000, so not a big international signing really in any sense of the word. But he's really surging ahead of his peers, and he's the power guy of this group, which is fun to watch. And yeah, Levi Wells, like I literally daydream about Levi Wells' pitch data and what that stuff looks like. I know Baseball America last year, among his age group, he was one of the top in their Stuff Plus model in all of minor league baseball, and he's already up to 62 innings pitched this year, so 2 more than last year already. So you wonder how many more innings they're going to let him go this year. He missed 5 or 6 weeks with the shoulder injury last year. He had 1 quick IL stint this year. I believe that was it. So pretty much injury free. Yeah, the strikeouts are down a little bit, but the walk rate is down tremendously. It's down to 6.8% this year, a sub-3 ERA, and he's got 27 innings in Bowie. He's only given up 1 home run as well, only 3 on the year. So yeah. I really like this group. And you got Watts Brown and Weston down there at 19 and 20. Like, I do think those are the kind of guys on the list where it's like, where are they going to go? Is Weston just going to be a reliable up and down guy who can help you out with 6, 7, 8 pitches? I don't know how many pitches this kid throws at this point. A lot. With the funky arm slot, the funky delivery, he could be useful for you at the major league level. And Brown, is he more of a fastball slider reliever if you can get a little bit more swing and miss with the fastball? Or is he a potential, is he going to be competing for a back end starter spot in a year time? TBD on that. But I like this fun list. And honestly, the next 10 guys, even more exciting names.
Yeah, let's go right into that next group of 10, number 21 through 30. At 21, we have right-hander Wellington Aracena, the prize prospect who came to the Orioles from the Mets in the Gregory Soto trade. Aracena had kind of a get your feet wet, welcome to your new organization outing at Delmarva last week before being promoted to Aberdeen. So we will get to see him at the high A level over the final weeks of this year. He's followed by Austin O'Verne, who, as Bob mentioned earlier, gets to jump up to Chesapeake. It's been a roller coaster at times for O'Verne at the plate this year, but you can see some 5-tool potential in his game, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in a few minutes. At number 23, Chase McDermott. McDermott came into the season as a top 10 prospect, but was on the IL at the beginning of the year, and since coming off the IL, has really struggled with his command, prompting us to question whether or not his long-term home is in the bullpen rather than in the rotation. Joseph Jirwa, the Orioles pick out of Michigan State this year, a big left-hander, new to the organization, ranks 24th. He's followed by a fellow southpaw, Luis De Leon, at 25. JT Quinn, another pitcher drafted in the 2025 draft class. Quinn, a right-hander out of Georgia, comes in at 26. He's followed by Zach Fruit at 27. Wilfred De La Cruz, a young infielder acquired from the Cubs in the Andrew Kittredge trade, comes in at 28th, and I think he's drawing 5 walks a game down the DSL now since that trade, so continuing to put up good numbers. Number 29, Steven Martinez, power-hitting young outfielder, recently promoted from the FCL to Delmarva, and then Jordan Sanchez, another young power-hitting outfielder who we saw at the FCL this year. So there's a lot of kind of variation here between the ceiling and the floor with this group, which is why I think the 20 to 30 range is a good spot for a lot of them. But I want to start with O'Verne, the reigning South Atlantic League Player of the Week, just promoted from Aberdeen to Chesapeake. And what we've seen from O'Verne this year, I think kind of close to what a lot of draft reports had on him coming out of USC last year, which is excellent defensive center fielder, intriguing raw power, good eye to plate, but also some swing and miss tendencies and a kind of questionable hit tool. At points at Aberdeen, we saw a hitter who was piling up a lot of strikeouts, but when he was on, as he was this last week at Aberdeen, he could be the most electric player on the field. So, Nick, I'll start with you because you kind of teased O'Verne's season, the piece over at Substack, before the 2025 campaign even got underway. What have your thoughts been about his performance this year?
I really liked when they took him out of USC last year, but I've always kind of liked the guys they've taken in this mold, in this range. I think it's been more of injury related, right? Like Reed Trimble injuries, Tavian Josenberger this year, specifically injuries, John Rhodes injuries. The man told me himself, I should have had the surgery. But then said, I can't complain because I'm with the Dodgers now. And good job, John. I think the Orioles kept going back to this well because they think it's going to work as well. And so, yeah, December waiting for baseball. I'm like, what's going to make O'Verne different? What makes him stand out? When I'm started to dive back into last year's draft class. And I just think he had first round grades on him after his freshman year. It was so good. Yes, he took a step back his sophomore year, but he went to the Cape. He made some changes in the box and excelled instantly. And I think that's when the Orioles, who were already in on him, made the call and said, yeah, these changes are working. This is legit. We're going to draft him. Another differentiator for me between O'Verne and some of the others in this realm is the power. The power is getting completely slept on. And the hits started coming this past week. The walks started coming in bunches, but he really wasn't hitting. And then in the last week or two, the hits started coming. And the true power started to emerge. It's a violent swing, but in a good way. Yes, there's aggression. There's going to be swing and miss, but I think the power is underrated. the speed and defense, I think, gets overlooked as well because he's in the same system as Enrique Bradfield Jr., Jet Fabian. He was taken in the same draft class as Vance Honeycutt, who I know, but like O'Byrne still has like double plus speed defensive grades on some outlets. He entered the draft. MLB Pipeline, take it for what it's worth, had him, I think, the highest speed and defensive grade in last year's draft class. Like, he's out of Aberdeen now, thank God. Get more of these guys out of there, please. And O'Byrne's getting his next test handed to him now at Double A. Hopefully, get him in the lineup on Tuesday. After Tuesday, I think they play Tuesday at noon, actually. So hopefully he's in the lineup tomorrow afternoon, and we get to see him the rest of the way here in Double A. But I think he's a step above, and I'm not just saying this because he's having a solid stretch right now, and the other guys, injuries or whatever, maybe haven't panned out. But I legitimately think O'Byrne is a notch, maybe a notch and a half above some of these other guys who they've taken earlier in the rounds in kind of similar molds over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I completely agree. He was a big breakout candidate for us. Got off to a great start this season. He's had his ebbs and flows, but he ended his Aberdeen career on a very high note. 4 home runs in a 4-day span, 2 in one game. Like, he's incredibly fast. He can steal at will. He can throw you out. He's got a great arm. He's tracking balls down. As Vivek said in the chat, he's kind of like a Bradfield with power. And as he gets further along in his getting away from baseball full time, I think you start to see things click a little bit. I'm very high on Austin O'Byrne as well. And I think getting out of Aberdeen into Bowie is going to be a great thing for him. I think he's not going to miss a beat. And if anything, it's just going to be able to give him a chance to show off his skill set even more. Just like, as Nick said, all of these guys, as close as I am to Aberdeen, I'm starting to get excited that Frederick's back and we can get out of this hitter's hellhole that is Aberdeen. But yeah, big fan of O'Byrne.
Let's go to McDermott for a minute, because I just mentioned this in the intro of this group. Then we can talk about some of the other guys here. I think the reasons that we've liked McDermott over the years have been pretty clear. Yes, there are command issues from time to time, but when he can locate his pitches in the zone, it's true swing and miss stuff. And when hitters are able to make contact, they really don't do anything with it. And that's why we were bullish for so long on McDermott as a starter. And up until this spring, early this summer, that still seemed like a realistic possibility, but he has really, really struggled with his command since coming off the IL, not just with throwing too many balls, but when his pitches are in the zone, he is getting hit harder than he has in the past. So, Nick, I'll go back to you for this one, because you've mentioned this on several shows in the last couple of months. Is it time to just go ahead and say McDermott's a future reliever and hope that the Orioles get value from him that way?
Yeah, I'm done listening as to why he should be a starter. I understand there may be reasons why. I don't care anymore. Keep him in the bullpen and extract as much value as you can out of him. I know he's being limited right now in the bullpen role. I think that's more injury related. But yeah, I'm done. Put him in the bullpen and have him come out in spring competing for a bullpen role next year.
Yeah, next year is his last option year anyway. So at this point, look, I feel bad because I just don't think he's been right all year. I think it's a lot of it has been injury driven and just not really 100% healthy. But at this point, you got one option year left. He's 98, 99 out of the bullpen. So clearly he can ramp it up in a shorter stint. Let's do it. I could see him, even if he struggles the rest of this entire season, I could see him resting up, getting healthy, fine-tuning some things, coming into next spring training and winning a job in the bullpen just because his stuff is that electric when it's right. So, yeah, I think it's time to turn him loose as a relief option and see what he can do. Any
other thoughts on this group that you guys have?
Wilfred De La Cruz is fun down in the DSL, and the 3 games he's played, he's got 6 walks, a double and a triple. Walked 3 more times this morning. That's fun. Steven Martinez hitting 217 in the FCL, still getting promoted at 17 to Delmarva. Clearly, the organization likes what they're seeing behind under the hood there. With Martinez, we know the raw power is insane. I think 60 raw power is a little bit low. I think that's what Fangraphs has on him. But I think we'll see what he does more so next year back in Delmarva. And I'm taking a stand an early stand. I think I'm the high guy. Trying to look at y'all's list real quick. I have JT Quinn 20 on my list, which I think has pushed him up with the overall list here. I'm just going to take the stand on JT Quinn now. I really like this arm, draft pick this year out of Georgia. I'm 20, not 21. My notes are all messed up. But the fastball is up to 98 with 7 feet of extension, 2 good breaking balls already. And you look at what he did in the Cape Cod League just this summer, 25 strikeouts, 2 walks, and 14 innings. I think that's a very positive sign considering some control issues, but he also was never really, they didn't take the gloves off with Quinn at Georgia this year after 2 not so good seasons at Mississippi State, I think before he transferred to Georgia. Georgia just didn't let him go. I think he's got 3 electric pitches, that over-the-top delivery with the big-time extension. That fastball is going to jump on hitters pretty quickly. I'm pretty stoked to see Quinn probably in Aberdeen or high A's rotation to start next year.
I'm so ready to join you on the Quinn train because it's the name of my 2-year-old daughter. I need a Quinn jersey, Orioles jersey in my life. So, and I just like the stuff in general. But yeah, I'm if I just see him in a game a few times, I'm probably going to be right there with you. Steve Martinez, yeah. I mean, I don't care what the stats are. The fact that they promoted a 17-year-old to low A Delmarva, he's what, 1 for 14, or I don't even know, but he's 1 hit in his first week at Delmarva, but it doesn't matter. The fact that they promoted him and are challenging him in that way says a lot to me. So, yeah, I think his potential is enormous, and Wilfred De La Cruz is not far behind. Yeah, I think the stat line and the little stand still camera that they got, from what we can tell, I think he's could be pretty special himself. So, and I'm a huge fan of Wellington Arcena, having seen him pitch 1 time now. But I just think this stuff is really good, and if he can stick as a starter, yeah, he's going to fly up this list as well.
Yeah, if Arcena sticks as a starter, you're looking at someone who's not just going to rise up this list quickly, but national list as well. I think that more so what he does at the beginning of next year is probably going to tell us a lot about whether or not he can stick in a rotation. But he had a great year in the Mets system. I really liked what I saw from him in his debut outing with Delmarva last week. And then with JT Quinn, I agree with Nick. If there was a little bit more of a track record in college, he probably would be higher on my list. I have him 29th, so not too far behind. But if he had more of a track record of success in college, he would have been higher. But then again, if he had more of a track record of success with the stuff that he has, the Orioles probably would not have been able to get him where they did. So this is a draft pick that has a possibility of a lot of helium.
Yep, just plant my flag early there. And if I'm wrong, won't be the first time, won't be the last time.
We'll go down there.
It happened with me with the tool shed, so don't feel bad if it tanks.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Sign up for Greenlight today at greenlight.com/podcast.
We go down now to the 31 through 40 range, and I know that there's going to be some interesting discussions about players in this section of the list because we have some newcomers to the system and some players that have been in the system for a while. Some of them, I think, fell to this range, not necessarily based on performance, but some of them we know did, and we'll talk about that as appropriate here. At number 31, Thomas Sosa. Sosa has missed a good chunk of this season with an injury, but he recently came back at Aberdeen. While there are some questions about the hit tool, there's undeniable raw power and good athleticism from the young outfielder. He's followed by Joshua Lorenzo at 32nd, who was promoted to Delmarva after a hot start in the FCL this year. The hit tool has been inconsistent with the Shorebirds, but again, showing some interesting raw power. 33, Creed Willems. Willems has cooled off a bit since his very hot start to the season, but still arguably putting together the best all-around offensive season of his career as he approaches Rule 5 eligibility for the first time this offseason. Number 34, Ethan Anderson. It had been a rough go for Anderson offensively for a few months at Aberdeen, but he is showing some signs of life at the plate and really getting the first extended opportunity to catch that he has had after being a catcher, first baseman, outfielder hybrid at Virginia, largely owing to the fact that he played behind Kyle Teal for a few years with the Cavaliers. At number 35, Keeler Morphe, the helium guy on a lot of lists coming into the season, struggled out of the gate with the Shorebirds, missed some time with an injury, beginning to work his way back, but in short outings with Delmarva now, and some of the command concerns definitely linger with him. Number 36, Colin Yeaman, shortstop chosen in this most recent draft class. He's followed by Cobb Hightower, who was acquired from the Padres as part of the O'Hearn Laureano deal, a young infielder who adds some interesting depth and an intriguing profile to this system. And number 38, Vance Honeycutt, who had a very, very steep drop from his most recent ranking on our list a month ago, and an even steeper drop from where he was preseason. Number 39, welcome to the top 50, and recently welcome to the big leagues, Jeremiah Jackson, an infielder who the Orioles signed as a minor league free agent this offseason and recently promoted to the major leagues after strong stints in the minors with Chesapeake and Norfolk, and with Ramon Urias having been dealt, Jackson should have an extended opportunity to prove himself in the major leagues over the final months of the season. And then at number 40, Ellis Cuevas. Cuevas began this season on the IL, but was recently promoted to Aberdeen after spending some time with the Shorebirds. The hit tool has not quite been there for Cuevas this year, but when he's on, he shows intriguing raw power for his size to go with defensive versatility and plus speed. So a lot to like there with Cuevas, but let's start with Vance Honeycutt. It has been and Nick's shaking his head no, we got to talk about it. It has been a rough year, to say the least, for Honeycutt. And it was actually a season that started with a little bit of promise. He had a decent April, but since then has really dropped off. He's currently on the IL at Aberdeen with an ankle injury. And whatever time he gets before the season ends, hopefully he's able to salvage it. But it has been a tough year in the sense that we knew Honeycutt coming into the system was a guy with swing and miss issues. The strikeouts could be a problem, but he had so much power, so much athleticism, great defensive center fielder, that it seemed like it was worth the risk for the Orioles in the first round of last year's draft. What we've gotten this year is not only a lot of swing and miss, but little to no power. And I know that we could sit here and blame that on the environment at Aberdeen, but he really hasn't hit on the road either. So what do you guys make of Honeycutt this season?
Lost year. Hopefully, look, I'm not writing him off as a prospect. I'm not calling him a bust, not saying he can't possibly get that value back. But 2025, just completely lost year. Not it. For a top 50 that had a lot of tough cuts, he was not a tough cut for me. He did not make my top 50. It was not hard to push him off of there. I don't know if he's my top 60 right now. Not to say he couldn't very quickly next year get back on it if he can turn things around, but it's just, look, he's striking out a lot. Like, I don't know how many times he's gone 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts, 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts. It's not pretty, but just was an easy cut. Keeler Morphe is not on my top 50 list personally either, but that's more of he's just got to figure it out a little bit before get healthy. Well, he might be done for a while because he walked off mid batter this last game. But yeah, these guys are off the top 50 for now, just because the depth is so much. But Honeycutt, probably the most disappointing draft pick in this front office's history, which is not that hard to do because they've hit so often. But yeah,
I kept Morphe at 29. It was a tough decision for me because when he has been on the field, it's been zero control. But we know the tools are so loud, and we know that it wasn't like it was sources in the organization. It was outside scouts as well that were on record by saying how much they love this kid. And even though maybe more likely like, oh, this is a future reliever and didn't really see a future starter, I think a lot of that was due to his size, which is fair. But it's definitely been a tough drop for Morphe. And these are high variance prospects. It's going to happen. And you've got Mejia that takes his place. And now we see if Mejia, and there are some other arms down there in the DSL who are going to bubble up next year as well. We'll see if they can take that leap. That's why you bring as many of these guys into the system as you can. With Honeycutt, I'm definitely not going to get on the soapbox like I did with Colton Cowser when he was struggling in high A. But I'm also not burying Honeycutt as either. Like, I dropped him to 30 on my list just because, like, there's no denying it's been an awful season. But the pedigree, like, first round pick, he was one of the most prolific hitters college baseball has seen over the last couple of years. And it is year one. And everyone knew this was going to be a big time project. And I honestly, if I go back, people love to do the revisionist history thing with drafts. It's a fun exercise to do with friends and chats or whatever, but I still make that Honeycutt pick probably almost every single time, to be completely honest. It's just, I don't know. Hopefully this is a reset. You know, he's got the injury. You know, I'm sure he's got some bumps and bruises, but I think this is an opportunity to hit the reset button, and hopefully he can come out these last couple of weeks and string together some good games and come out next year and start again. If you're out on him, I get it. I don't blame you at all, but these, you know, you can try to look at some of the numbers, like the contact rate is 65%. It's not good, but it is way up from what we saw last year. The swing and strike rate is down to 13%. Again, not good, but way better than it was last year. He just stopped swinging. He doesn't swing the bat. It's like a 37% swinging rate. Like, so he's falling behind early, and then he's getting his 2 strikes, then deciding to swing, and that leads to the 0 for 4 days. It's a lot more than that. Like you said, there's no power. Even the defense, he was highly praised defensive player as well. And it's not like we've seen a ton of, you know, highlight reel defensive plays from Honeycutt this year either. So we'll try. We'll try again next year. And, you know, if it's June 1st next year and it's still a lot of the same stuff, I think then the conversation gets a little bit more dark. But yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Nick when it comes to both of these players. I'll start with Morphe, who was 23rd on my list. I really struggled with what to do with him. I debated at one point putting him as low as, I think, 37, 38, as high perhaps as 20 in some iterations of my list as I was working on this. What I kept coming back to and why I settled where I did is that when Morphe is on, which admittedly he has not been on for much of this year, but when Morphe is on, there is no other pitcher in the system like him. The fastball velocity, what he can do with that slider, which is a hard slider, much like what we talked about with Esteban Mejia earlier. And yeah, if you want to compare Morphe to Mejia, yeah, at this point, Mejia is a better prospect, not just because of their performances this year, but Mejia looks like a future major league starting pitcher. He fits the physical prototype. Morphe is an undersized guy, and I have said repeatedly, I don't care if you're 5'8" or if you're 6'5". In my book, if you can pitch and you have the makings of a major league starter, I'm not going to hold the height against you. But when you look at some of the injuries that have kind of piled up with Morphe this year, some of the concerns that I've seen with his delivery and the starts that I have watched with him this year, it's like, okay, maybe the size concerns are valid here. I hope that he finds it and he's able to get some innings before the season ends because, like I said, there's very few pitchers in the system like him, and he's still young enough that he has time to do it. And with Honeycutt, it was all about pedigree. It really just comes back to the fact that it didn't feel like a reach when the Orioles took him 24th last year. And I think that's really important to keep in mind was that I don't think that I read nationally, and I don't know that either one of you did either, any national write-ups that said the Orioles reached on Honeycutt. It seemed like fair value with where they were picking in the draft. I think they even had to go a little bit over slot to get him. So that wasn't we're just going to take a flyer here. Honeycutt was projected by most mock drafts to go in that range. And if he was having the kind of year where he wasn't hitting, but we were seeing more power, we'd be sitting here saying it hasn't been perfect, but this is kind of one end of the extreme that we were expecting. If he wasn't hitting for power, but all the metrics that Nick just pointed out were leading to better numbers across the board otherwise, it'd be like, okay, well, the Orioles were having him focus on cutting back on the swing and miss. We'll wait for the power to come around next year. It's just that neither one has been there, and that's what's really frustrating. You hope that he's able to rebound, but it's going to take a lot more than high A shifting from neutral to slightly pitcher-friendly Aberdeen this year to hitter-friendly Frederick next year for that to happen.
Yeah, good call. But one player who I think has been, because he's still raw, Thomas Sosa, he's been inconsistent. Like, he'll show flashes of why he's rated as highly as he is for us, and then he'll have a lot of over nights with some strikeouts. But I think him repeating high A next year and being in Frederick instead of Aberdeen is going to be like mind-blowing. I think he's going to really show out early next year and earn a quick promotion. That's my prediction for him. Just going for some other these guys here. Creed Willems, I think, is probably the best 33rd ranked prospect in all of baseball because he has done really nothing wrong. Like, he's still young for his level, performing well. Yeah, he had a bad June, but he had a great July. Yeah, feel bad for him being this low. It's nothing really against him or what he's done this year. It's just about the guys being brought in or who have made leaps ahead of him. Jeremiah Jackson, I'm excited to see what he can do at the major league level, see if his breakout 2025 is for real or not. Time will tell. Got to see Cobb Hightower watching the Mejia start. And yeah, he looks smooth at shortstop. He looks like he's pretty comfortable in the box, makes some contact, took some walks. Ellis Cuevas, yeah, he's been kind of up and down too, but off to a hot start in high A, even being in Aberdeen. And I think he'll just continue to be a guy that's a little bit under the radar in the system. Other than that, I think, yeah, Ethan Anderson, I wonder how healthy he was until somewhat recently, because all of a sudden he's hitting again like we thought he would. So hopefully he keeps that up to close out the year.
I was going to highlight Ethan Anderson just because I think the injuries, and then I said a couple weeks ago, I also think I wonder if there's, because a heavier emphasis on working on his defense behind the plate, if that's also kind of stymied the bat a little bit. He's not learning a new position, but like Zach mentioned earlier, he didn't play the position a ton in college. He's also in a crappy park. But he is on the rise, 13 hits over his last 10 games, hit a home run on Sunday. Like, a lot of the numbers look fine. He's not swinging and missing a lot at all, actually. Contact rate is good. BABIP's low. Ground balls are up. I mean, so maybe the hits are starting to fall a little bit. Some positive regression is happening. And I think we hopefully we're seeing the Ethan Anderson who entered last year with some of the better batted ball data among his 2024 draft peers. I think we're starting to see him emerge again because he started out the year so hot. He's still only 21, so young bat. I like where he's trending over the last couple of weeks. I like the Thomas Sosa call as well. Thomas Sosa, only 20. I feel like we've been talking about him for years. We have, but he's still only 20 years old. And he missed pretty much the entire season with that lower body injury. Don't know exactly what it was. Cuevas, man, I want Cuevas to click and work just because that passion, that swag on the field is unmatched. It's 80 grade. I don't know if anyone else in the organization at least shows that emotion outwardly. I would love to see that move up the system as well. And yeah, that's why on this list, Cobb Hightower, looking into him more, because I threw out the hot take last week that he's going to rise very high on this list. I forget exactly what I said. I think I said top 20 by the end of next year. But you look back at the 2024 class, he was a high school prospect, a bit on the older side, kind of a late pop-up guy, but the Padres are huge believers in him. And coming into the year, MLB Pipeline had a piece on him before the season started this year saying that he was like the Padres prospect to click this year, and thinking he's got 20-plus home run potential in the bat. Just 20 years old, injury-derailed season this year, but he's got a fresh start. He's back home on the East Coast, got to start his Orioles career down in his home state of North Carolina this weekend and had a good weekend. So high on Cobb Tower and Yeeman there. I'm excited to see both these shortstops across the full season next year.
Yeah, completely agree on the two shortstops. And just real quick on Creed, he's not the top catching prospect in the system, but how many other organizations out there do you think would be happy if their top catching prospect was 22 at AA, putting up a 116 WRC plus with a 10% walk rate and a strikeout rate just under 17%?
Yeah,
it's just the catchers. And so you got Ethan Anderson, Samuel Basallo at the top. I'm not counting Ike Irish, but you can if you want to. Caden Bodine, Ethan Anderson. Then you've got Creed Willems, and then you've got a guy in the 40 to 50 range here who I'm getting really excited about. There's even more catchers, and one not on our top 50 who's in high A and looking pretty interesting as well. So catching position in this organization is fun, we'll say.
I was going to say absurd
Yeah.
in a good way.
I was trying to think of a word and I blanked. So there you go.
And I think that's a good cue now to move into the final section of this list, 41 through 50. And I think that there's an interesting variance here between higher ceiling guys versus guys with higher floors. Number 41, Sebastian Gongora, a left-hander who's been one of the better breakout stories of the 2025 season. He's followed by Alex Pham at 42. Pham has been on our list for a while. Unfortunately, an injury early in the season has eaten into a good chunk of his innings this year, but he is healthy now, working his way back, just had a rehab start at high A Aberdeen. So hopefully we at least see him back in Chesapeake's rotation before the season ends. But before that injury, he was showing he was ready for AAA. At number 43, Tyson Neighbors, part of the Laureano O'Hearn trade. There's an argument to be made that of the players included in that deal, Neighbors will be the first to the major leagues. Has put up very good numbers out of the bullpen this year at two levels, including AA, and it seems like he might be able to get to Norfolk before the season ends. Number 44, Yasmil Bousset, on the hitter side, one of the better breakout stories of 2025. Shows good bat-to-ball skills with good exit velocity, and if the Orioles can get a little bit more behind Bousset's launch angle, we could really see that power take a step forward. Iber Cartaya ranks 45th. The lanky right-hander has good velocity and has gotten better as the season has gone along at repeating his delivery, allowing him to be more effective and show better command. He's followed by Luis Almeida at number 46. The Almeida still holds the record for the highest signing bonus by a prospect signed in international free agency by the Orioles. And injuries kind of stalled his career early on, but he has been healthier this year and shown flashes of athleticism throughout the 2025 season, which for him began in the FCL before promotion to Delmarva. Number 47, Patrick Riley. I have no doubt in my mind that if Riley had not had Tommy John surgery earlier this year, that he would probably rank at worst in the upper 20s, more likely the teens. And I think for the three of us, putting him here on the list is an acknowledgement of the real potential he has, but with him having undergone Tommy John surgery earlier this year, we probably won't see him until late in the first half of next year or early in the second half of the 2026 season. At number 48, Anthony Nunez, one of the players acquired from the Mets as part of the Cedric Mullins trade. Nunez is putting up a very good season between high A and double A in the Mets system, and after his one appearance at Chesapeake over the weekend, he was promoted to AAA Norfolk. If you want to hear a little bit more about Nunez's background, go back to our last show. We talked about him a lot, a converted shortstop who was once in the Padres system and then able to go back to college after being released by the Padres and made a conversion to pitcher. Number 49, Andrew Tess. I think that this was the catcher that Nick was just talking about a moment ago. Shows a really advanced feel for the strike zone at his young age. He was recently promoted from the FCL to Delmarva. And at number 50, Jamon Newell. And if you want to look for a young infielder with a loud hit tool and good exit velocities, look no further than Newell, who was solid in his first season to DSL in 2024, but has been even better in 2025, allowing him to solidify a spot at the very end of our top 50 in what was a tough list to put together, and a list that, as we'll talk about in a moment, had some good players that fell just short. But looking at this range, I think that, as I mentioned a moment ago, interesting variance between floor and ceiling with some of these guys. But I think that this is really a fun part of the list.
Yeah, it really is. I think I'm the high man on Tess at 42. He got up to Delmarva, hasn't missed a beat. Looked like he was going to go in the injured list after suffering an injury. I think came back the next day and went 1 for 3 and hasn't missed a beat in a few games since then. I really like what we've seen from him. Seems like a guy that's just getting better and better. I think he's going to be a really fun guy to follow the rest of the season. And obviously moving forward, I think Ivor Cartaya might be the most underrated pitching prospect in the system. Just take away his first 2-3 weeks of the season, and man, his numbers look insane. I think I have a little bit of a problem with relief pitcher prospects, and maybe it's because the Orioles really haven't focused on that until this trade deadline. They kind of did target some of those guys, or at least maybe that's just what they thought was the best value that they could get. But guys like Tyson Neighbors, Anthony Nunez, even Keegan Gillis, who's dropped off here, guys like that who I probably should give more credence to, but Neighbors is an exciting relief prospect. And just like Levi Wells and Teddy Sharkey, another maniac on the mound, so you got to love it. Let's see. Jamon Noel, yeah, I think he could be a big-time breakout candidate for 2026 once he gets stateside, so definitely want to keep an eye on.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Sign up for Greenlight today at greenlight.com/podcast.
I just like Andrew Test so much. And he's not even showing the power. And I think that's a part of his game that is going to start shining as he gets older. Fantastic year in the FCO, 149 WRC plus, 18% walk rate. And also the stolen bases. He is a super athletic kid. He's got 18 stolen bases on the year so far in 59 games. Yeah, not missing a beat at all since his promotion. Only 5 games, but he's hitting 385 and a 199 WRC plus, walking 4 times in 5 games as well. So Test has been awesome. And I said, even if he got promoted, he's still going to see playing time. Even if Ike Irish and Bodine and others join Delmarva here for a week or so, you're still going to see Tess's bat in that lineup because it's pretty special for an 18-year-old kid learning an 18-year-old kid who is learning the most difficult position in baseball, one of the most difficult positions in sports, and to make that transition to pro ball. And while the bat's still shining like it has at this age, I'm all in there. And I think I said I didn't have Yasmil Boucher in my top 50, so I completely ignored him when I teased this segment. But yeah, he's in our top 50 as well. The catching position, just the position that keeps on giving here. Yeah, Cartaya, look, he's super risky. Do I think he gets promoted to high A and hits his wall? Potentially. Do I think he's a future major league starter? I don't know. Not too high. Is he my new Ofelky Peralta? Yes, that's 100% true. I don't care where this guy ends up. I will watch every Ybor Cartaya start that I can get my hands on. But since June 1st, a 1.66 ERA, 33% strikeout rate, 9.8% walk rate, 148 average against. And he stopped hitting guys for the most part. He hit like 9 guys in his first 3 games and walked like a ton. So he's had a fantastic second half of the season here.
I think he's either the next Edgar Portes or the next really exciting reliever prospect.
Yeah, we'll see him next year. I would like to see him get up to high A, but if not, I get it. I get why he didn't. We'll see. Yeah, Carson Dorsey down there in low A as well. Wonder if he gets a shot up. I don't know. But anyway, elsewhere, yeah, Luis Almeida is the guy that I keep looking at, and I'm just like, man, he's healthy for the first time this year, which is the first positive. He hasn't taken off in low A like I thought he would after watching when he first came up. He looked the part. I only watched him play third base. I don't know how much he's played elsewhere, but I've only seen a couple of games at third place. He impressed there, even when he was challenged a little bit. So I think he's certainly earned another look next year. But I do think next year, as young as he is, he's going to be it's going to be a big year for Almeida, an important year for Almeida, we'll say. Just 19, doesn't turn 20 for a little bit longer. So he's got some time, but he has been in the system for a couple of years already. So hopefully that starts to click for him. But I'm super intrigued. And that's in this range. Like, yeah, a guy with his ceiling, I have no issues putting him here at the back end of the top 50 here and seeing if he can take off next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think with him and Lorenzo, it's been a real learning curve since they went up to Delmarva. Lorenzo of the 2 players has the louder skill set, specifically with his power, which is why I think he's a little bit higher on this list than Almeida is. Both of them have had stretches at the plate where they've looked pretty good. Both of them have had stretches where they've also been really challenged. But with how young both of them are, I think that you can afford to send them back to Delmarva next year to try to adjust to the level a little bit further before looking to move them up. And in the case, both of them have been affected by injuries to a certain extent. Almeida has missed a lot of time early in his professional career because of injuries, and Lorenzo missed, like 2 months in the FCL last year before he finally appeared in the game, and you could tell that he wasn't quite right at the plate when he came back. So these are two guys that I think have the potential to get a lot better with experience. And then another player in this section of the list that jumps out at me is Nunez. As I said last week, I really think that he's going to move through the system pretty quickly. He's at Norfolk now. We think, and it's been listed on Fangraphs, that he is Rule 5 eligible next year. His situation is a little bit complicated because he had that gap when he was out of pro ball for a few years. But if he is indeed Rule 5 eligible, he's probably getting protected. And there's a real possibility that if he pitches well in Norfolk over the next month, that we see him in the major leagues before the season ends. For all the same reasons I mentioned earlier with Cameron Weston. We know the Orioles are going to need depth. And in the case of Nunez, you've got a guy that you know can step in your bullpen and just pitch an inning here and inning there. And if nothing else, it could be a tune-up to see, okay, is he part of the solution in 2026? If he's not right away, what does he have to work on when he goes back to AAA? So there's a lot you could dream on here. So I wouldn't be entirely shocked if we see him in the major leagues before this season ends.
Yeah, I think we talked about this in the trade deadline reaction show, and the preview show. What is the value that you're going to be able to get back for a Cedric Mullins? And I think the fact that 2 of the 3 guys you got back are Rule 5 eligible tells you where his value was out there on the market. Not very high. But the Orioles look like they did pretty well in getting as much as they could back in those 2 Rule 5 eligible guys. Nunez looked great in his first outing, and I do think that quick promotion there to AAA kind of does tell you they're giving him these last few weeks here to showcase his stuff. Phenomenal story, if anything else. And then with the other guy, Gomez, I struggled with where to put him. I considered him. I wanted to because that fastball, and bringing up JJ Cooper's article, that kept going in the back of my mind. The odds of him reaching the major leagues are extremely high with his fastball like that. It's there. It's all the data. It's all the historical context is all there to show that his chances of reaching the big leagues are phenomenally high, actually. And he's going to get a lot of chances to stick in the big leagues. So, do I put him on here? How high do I put him on there? That's what made this for me. I know you mentioned the top of the list being very difficult. For me, it was 30 through 50. I'm where do I go with this? It's back to 2-3 years ago when we were putting these lists together, where it was I'm going to submit this. Bob, you figure out the final list. I don't love my personal top 50 list here, but hopefully the final one shakes out better, which I do think it did. But there are still guys that aren't on this list that I still think are super intriguing and very much still worth paying attention to. We could field a pretty solid minor league team with guys not on the top 50 here.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that is a good segue into our final segment of the night. Last call brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing. Located at 1421 Ridgely Street, Checker Spot is not far from Camden Yards, making it the perfect place for a pre- or post-game drink. And when you're at the ballpark this year, be sure to check out the beer stand behind home plate, where you can get one of Checker Spot's signature beers, The Bird is the Word. Now, in this last call segment, we're going to kind of expand on what Nick just mentioned a moment ago, and we're going to give our personal thoughts on players who just missed the top 50, but that we had on our personal list, and we're going to highlight the one player or maybe even 2 players that we really wanted to include on our personal list, but that fell short. And if you're watching live, you can see that we do have an honorable mention section, but I'll read off some of those names now. Right-hander Blake Money and right-hander Chase Alsop got individual votes for our top 50, but did not make the overall list. The same can be said for infielders Jose Pena and Griff O'Farrell, as well as Reed Trimble, Twine Palmer, who recently came over from the Astros and Ramon Arias deal, and then Cam Lee, one of the Orioles picks in the 2025 class. And Bob, I will start with you here. Who was the player or players that were on your personal top 50 that didn't make the list? And then who was the one guy you really wanted to have on your top 50, but in the end just couldn't find the room for?
All right. So I have Blake Money at 43. I think I've been the high guy on him consistently. I still think his stuff, I think he's going to make a really good reliever in the major leagues one day. Don't know if he's going to make it as a starter, but I like him a lot. Griff O'Farrell, I think I was the only one that had him. I had him at 46. I just think the bat has actually started to come along a little bit, and he plays really good defense. So, yeah, I just think he's like a fringe guy. Could be a bench player one day in the majors if things break right. I had Reed Trimble at 48. I just think now he's in AAA. He's got the tools. If he can stay healthy, I could see him eventually breaking through as a reserve outfielder. I have Roland Palmer at 49. I love the building blocks like we talked about in that episode last week that he has. 6'5", doesn't get hit hard whatsoever. A lot to build on there. And then I also had Cam Lee at 50. I just think he was one of the most intriguing draft picks that wasn't like an obvious big name for me. And I will take you into my sicko top 100 here if you're watching on YouTube to try to figure this out. Let me zoom in a tiny bit. Let's go to 150%. I will say 51, Jose Pena, 16 years old. He's really holding his own. He's kind of tailed off a little bit towards the end of the season, but God, for a kid so young to be performing the way he has is really impressive. Luis Almeida, he didn't make my list. Cohen Aiken, really having a nice year. Love what we've seen from Brandon Butterworth so far. Immediately promoted to AA and has not missed a beat. So I think he could easily be in the top 50 next month and could go on and on. Just, I think even all the way down to 100, Luis Beltran, super intriguing relief prospect that we've developed on our own. But yeah, a lot of really, really solid names here that we could see pop up over the next course of the next few months.
Yeah, I have to say, this is a test, see if my wife's listening. She's not. I had my list open last night doing some work on this, and she's just reading through, and she was like, Twine Palmer. She's like, there's a man named Twine. She said she was done reading the list after seeing somebody who was named Twine. And she's also convinced that Thomas Sosa is the son of Sammy Sosa. So there's that. She's going to come and do a bonus episode just talking about prospect names, apparently. I had two guys who were on my top 50, but did not crack the overall top 50. I had Jose Pena on my list just because, yeah, like you said, young. It doesn't turn 17 for another 2 weeks. He's played this entire season as a 16-year-old. I mean, numbers aren't popping, but 256 average, 13% walk rate, 12 extra base hits. Like he's another $1 million shortstop here in the organization. And he's doing so putting up some decent numbers at a very young age. Probably repeats DSL next year, and we can see if he trends up or not. But I'm certainly intrigued. And then I had Chase Alsop. It's just like, yeah, it's like what happened. I mean, I fully expected the struggles here. I said like the guy couldn't keep his job at Auburn, but he did get it back, and that showed me a lot. Like for him to be beaten down like he was at Auburn, to build himself back up, to reclaim a rotation spot by the end of the year when Auburn needed him, that tells you a lot about who he is. And figured, all right, he's going to get in Delmarva. There's going to be some struggles, but he's going to figure this out. And be the Baseball America had an article. Remember in the offseason, they were writing about him every single week. It seemed like. And those first two starts were so good. And then you watch him and you see the stuff stands out, but he can't find the strike zone. It's a sub 20% strikeout rate with a 15% walk rate. Thought he was turning the corner. He had a couple good outings where the walk rate was down. Strikeouts were down as well, but this is what we talked about. If it means fewer strikeouts, but you're getting better results, let's do this. Let's start throwing more strikes first and foremost. He was doing that, and then his last outing, he didn't make it out of the second inning, and he walked 4 guys. So unfortunate there. Those are my only 2 guys I had. And who do I want to include? Oh, man. I've also got a long list I could go on, but I think we could potentially be completely disrespecting RJ Austin. There's a lot to like in the profile. We talked about that after the draft. Watch him a lot at Vanderbilt, so I'm familiar with the game. I see the vision. I need to see it, though, in pro ball. Like, I have my mouse over his name ready to move him up, but need to see it on the field because the numbers and production just weren't there at Vanderbilt, no matter how good the underlying data was. Blake Money, yeah, same thing. I've just got this block when it comes to Blake Money, and I can't get over it. But a 17% swinging strike rate in AA, like that's insane. And he's up to a 30-inning sample size with a career high 31% strikeout rate in AA. So he's crushing it. Shout out to Blake Money. I didn't know what to do with guys like Emilio Sanchez and Elvin Garcia, $1 million shortstops, but we're now back-to-back years of struggles. So they're outside of my top 50. Remaining interesting, though, Carson Dorsey, another guy I'm very intrigued by. Watching a couple of his starts a little bit deeper now. Been hinting I'm going to write something about him. It's like half done. But watching some more of his outings, they continue to pile up. I like what I see. And yeah, Brandon Butterworth was the other guy. I had him in the 40s because I like the floor. And the views on him have been mixed. Some think there's more in the tank. Others have bigger questions in just reading kind of some Padres stuff. But he's coming from this very hitter-friendly environment, California. So you're like, yeah, the numbers are good, but they don't entirely match kind of the scouting report on him. So what is he going to do over here on the East Coast now he's in the Orioles system? And he had a fantastic weekend in AA to start his career. So hit a home run. It was just 3 games, so we're going to give it a little bit more time. But yeah, Butterworth is another guy who I've got my eye on.
So I went through the list, and this might be a first where I think I only had one player on my personal list that did not make the top 50. I think everybody else was included, and it was Jose Pena for me. Yeah, you look at the offensive numbers this year, and on the surface, they're okay, but they're not great. But he's doing this as one of the youngest players in the Dominican Summer League, and with the frame that he has, there's a lot of room for physical projection, the athleticism to possibly stick up the middle. And, there's a good chance that he's going to repeat the DSL last year. I fully understand why he's not on the list. But there's, of the players that fit that mold, I think because of his age and because of his projection, Pena might have the most upside. We're going to have to see what he does. And I think that some of the tailing off we've seen in recent weeks might just be because he's a 16-year-old kid running out of gas in the longest season, the only professional season of his life so far. But there's a lot there to like, and so I just kind of went with the ceiling of Pena in one of my last spots on the list. And then for me, the guy that I didn't know what to do with is Ramon Gomez, who Nick just mentioned a few minutes ago. Generally, there are not a lot of pitchers like Gomez in the minor leagues who can hit the triple digits as often as he does. And as Nick pointed out, in Baseball America piece covered this recently, almost all of those pitchers, if not all of them, reach the major leagues at some point. But what I struggled with is how much faith do I have in a 23-year-old at high A who can't find the strike zone? And it was a really, really tough thing to figure out because on one hand, the numbers are pretty bad. But on the other hand, this is I believe it's his first full season back from Tommy John surgery. And because of his Rule 5 eligibility in the offseason, the Orioles probably are either going to try to dangle him as a trade chip to round out a trade package, or they're going to put him on the 40-man and hope that he figures it out quickly at AA next year. But there's so much variance in his profile and so much risk that I, in the end, couldn't put him on the list. And it really did come down to me between him and Andrew Tess for number 50. And I just felt like Tess had such a well-rounded game at his age at that position that I had to go with him over Gomez.
Yeah, I could easily see. Look, Felix Bautista, he was the same story until all of a sudden he's hitting in the zone enough to skyrocket up the system and be one of the best closers in baseball. So I could see that happening, or I could see him flaming out and never even getting to AAA. But yeah, it's fascinating. I can't wait to see what he can do. And one guy I keep thinking to myself, are we just completely sleeping on this guy? It's Michael Caldone, who's just been really consistently good all year. But that's another podcast down the line.
I mean, look at all the guys who dropped that we didn't even talk about tonight. DJ Layton, Leandro Arias, Keegan Gillis, Yaki Rivera, Raylan Ramos, Cecil Correa, Tavian Josenberger, Juan Nunez. All these guys are still in the organization as well. But yeah, fun times. And I'm going to put, I know this is only a podcast version, YouTube version, but I have gotten this list written up, and I'll put it on Substack for anyone who may want to reference it for whatever reason over the next couple of weeks. We'll have it on written form up on Substack. No reports or anything, just pretty much the 1 through 50 list with like 10 sentences included on there. But that's about it. But for people to go back and check out and look at later.
We hope you've enjoyed unpacking this top 50 with us. And as a reminder, if you're a member of our patron community, you get this episode every month throughout the season. We do monthly updates to the top 50 list. And as I identified towards the top of the show, we're likely going to have at least one spot open if when Brandon Young reaches his rookie eligibility limits later this month. So that change and possibly more could be on the way. So be sure now to sign up to the $3, $5, or $10 levels and become a member of our Patreon community to have access to not only the monthly top 50 updates, but also bonus weekly shows from Bob, Nick, and myself, as well as access to patron-exclusive channels within our Discord. And that does it for this week. So we will be back next week. Look for updates from us on social media, of which we are on many channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, Blue Sky, Twitch, YouTube. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. As Nick mentioned, we will have the 1 through 50 list up over there, but we have a ton of great coverage throughout the week, basically, between our minor league coverage and then as well, you go back there, refer to some of our work around the draft and the trade deadline. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spen. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.
You know who's surprisingly good with money? Greenlight Kids. The other day, mine stopped to think about the ROI on a bag of chips. Seriously. From getting paid for doing chores around the house to saving up for concerts, Greenlight's teaching my kids how to handle their money.
Greenlight your kids' financial future with the #1 family finance and safety app. Try Greenlight risk-free at greenlight.com/podcast.